Tell me about yourself. My name is Sheena Owens. I like to think of myself as a very hard worker. I thrive on having a busy workday. I like a heavy workload. That seems to help me focus a little bit more than just having one task at a time. I am very independent and I don't need much help to actually perform my tasks. A lot of management or my managers have said that they like having me work for them because that I don't need much direction and I take the initiative to complete tasks on my own. Tell me about your past work experience. My past work experience varies. I spent a minimal time in the medical field as an EMT basic. From being an EMT basic, I went into being a dispatcher, which I loved. I worked on the other side of the calls. I got to triage calls and dispatch units according to the nature of the calls. And that was a very fast-paced environment. And from that job, I did learn that I like working in a fast-paced, somewhat stressful environment. I tend to thrive in those type of environments. From doing dispatching, I went into working as a behavioral health technician. And this job was very interesting. It was not expected. It wasn't anything that I planned on doing. I just was interested in applying for the job and I happened to get it. When I started working in that position, it was basically helping people that were addicted to either drugs or alcohol. And it was a rehab treatment center that I worked in. And from that position, I was actually promoted into the quality department. They were starting a new quality department and they thought that I had a good eye for quality. And I started working in that department and I helped develop a lot of the processes that is still in place now to help the quality department run efficiently. Once I started working in the quality department, I realized that this is something that I want to pursue. And so I worked in that department for 5 years. And I eventually became a quality supervisor, managing 6 different locations and 3 different programs for the quality department. From there, I started working for Grifols, which is currently where I'm employed, and that started out working in the laboratory, processing plasma and for manufacture of medication. From that job, I was also picked out again that I had good quality and that I had a good eye for quality, and I started working in the quality department again. And I tend to love quality. I think finding details and trending work and people's errors and how centers function based on the training and the error rates and the quality department that helps them get better at their jobs. I learned that that's something that I am very interested into. So quality has been a passion of mine and I tend to stick with it. Describe a time when you worked well on a team. Just this past week at our center, we've been pretty short-staffed with people leaving and having a high turnover rate. There's always a high turnover rate in the plasma industry. So I work in the quality department. The quality department does not help with production. We don't really do too much except for review charts and review for errors and make sure everyone is compliant. So therefore, when it comes down to doing any kind of work, we can't really touch any charts or actually perform any tasks, just at risk for quality reviewing our own work. So recently at our center, we had just a huge rush of donors coming in. We had short staff, short management, not much good flow going on at the center. When I came out to grab charts to review, I noticed that my team or so coworkers were struggling to kind of get donors flowing through, as well as the supervisor that was working there that day. Because I recognized this and I recognized that he was really limited in the areas that he can go into, I jumped into that and just helped move production through and push donors through as much as I could. I became more of a leader and helped rally the team so that we could push donors through and get through the night, because it was looking like it was going to be a long night at the center. This just involved moving, people around and thinking about what staff members can move to different areas, who's cross-trained, and who can perform what tasks so that we can continue to push donors through and not stay stagnant. I didn't really think too much about it. I just jumped in and helped as much as I could, and I got all the donors pushed through and was able to stay until the last of the donors got to the donor floor, which is where the last part of the process takes place to get their venipunctures completed. Tell me about a time when you had too many things to do and had to prioritize your tasks. This is my everyday job. I work in a quality department. There's usually too much work for the amount of people that are working the job. And that's the normal for that type of position when you're working in the quality department. I tend to prioritize my tasks based on due dates, based on how long it takes me to perform tasks, and the needs of other coworkers or colleagues around me. When I first come into my job, I communicate with management. I communicate with the people that I have to work with, and I see if they have any immediate needs that are going to impede someone else's job. That's usually my main concern whenever I'm working with people, is just to make sure that my tasks aren't holding up someone else's tasks. Next, I try to go to things that are time sensitive, things that need to be completed that day, things that cannot wait for the next day to be reviewed. And those are my first things that I review. The next thing that I review is something that may have time constraints on them, but not necessarily, they don't have to be reviewed that day. So I prioritize by the days that we have to complete them. If I have 7 days to complete one task, but I only have 3 days to complete the next, the one that has 3 days is going to be completed first, obviously. I also use my time management when I prioritize. If I know that certain tasks take me a long time to complete them, I will usually try to complete them first. That way I can use the rest of my day to kind of gauge out how I complete the other shorter tasks that won't take me as long as the time constraints don't conflict with the time limits that I have to do those tasks. Tell me about a time when you had too many things to do and had to prioritize your tasks. Currently, I work as a quality associate for Grifols. A lot of times in the weekends, it's just me by myself, and I have a lot of tasks to complete by the end of my shift. And some of these tasks have to be completed that day, and some tasks can wait until the next day or in a couple of days, depending on what the task is. A lot of times I have certain observations and deadlines to meet, chart reviews to complete, product investigation reports to review, and suitable product checklists to fill out. Certainly, there's been a lot of times that I've ran into where I don't have enough time to complete all the tasks that I do have. Our unsuitable product checklists, our PIRs, our reactives and things of that nature are very time sensitive. And so when those things come across my desk, I tend to address those things first. There's been a day where I've had, I think, 7 observations to complete. Observations are when I actually have to go into the areas and observe people performing their job duties. I also had 2 PIRs to complete. PIRs have 3-day time limits. And then I also had my daily duties to do, which are chart reviews that have a 2-day time frame. That day, when I knew that I had a lot of observations to complete, because that was the last day for me to complete them, that was the first thing that I did. I just went out into the areas and I made sure that I just grabbed all the observations that I needed to get. That way, if it got slower or if it slowed down and there weren't enough people to observe, I wouldn't run into the problem of where I wasn't able to get that task completed. So I completed that first thing in the morning. The next thing, I looked at the time frame on the PIRs that we have, which are product investigation reports. Those have 3-day time frames to complete. And there was one that was due that day, so I completed that one, and the other ones had 2 days on them, so I put those to the side to complete the next day that I would come into work. The next thing are just chart reviews. Those have 2 days to complete, and so I started on my chart reviews. I think I got close to the end of my day. I completed everything that needed to be completed that day for a review, and then the ones that I knew that weren't going to be an issue for tomorrow or to be left for tomorrow, I left those for the next day's review. And that's usually how I prioritize my day. Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond the call of duty. How did you handle the situation? I tend to go above and beyond a lot. As a quality associate at my current center, there's not much that quality associates are required to do. I know that when I do talk to other coworkers at different centers, they mention the things that I do that other quality members don't do at their centers. For instance, there was a night that I knew that people were going to be staying late, and once the doors are closed, the doors are closed, but when whoever's in the center, we still have to process those donors. And I've seen the morale of employees kind of diminishing as they knew that they were going to be staying there late night. The first thing that I did was just ask, what can I do to help? Because I was caught up on my work as a quality associate. I went and started pulling new donors and reviewing NDQs and putting them into the system and getting vein checks and pictures and, just helping out as much as I could and, helping the flow of donors and doing what people weren't available to do. And that helped the center a lot. Tell me about a time when you worked effectively under pressure. I used to work in the plasmapheresis department of my company. The plasmapheresis department is responsible for processing all plasma and samples that come through the laboratory. This includes just drawing samples for testing and then making sure that the plasma gets into the freezer within a 30-minute time frame. Because of that 30-minute time frame, it does become a little stressful when it's a heavy load of plasma coming through to the lab. I noticed that when we lost employees or when we were understaffed, that a lot of times I would be scheduled by myself, which was not typical when I first started. And I was scheduled by myself, and we would get a heavy flow of bottles coming into the laboratory. And I just worked as best as I can, and I prioritized. I managed my bottles and my times and just made sure I kept a good eye on the time and put bottles in as soon as I could. I try to remind myself that I can only do as much as I can and that I can't do something that's, unnatural of me to do. And that's how I just handled the pressure. I just kept working and working at a good pace and staying consistent and making sure I had good quality as well as being effective. Give me an example of a time when you showed initiative. When I started working at, it's called Community Bridges, and they were first developing their quality department, I was asked to go work for their department and basically start their new quality department. I was given my own center to start the quality department at a different location. And we kind of had an idea of what they wanted. They wanted us to look at certain things and, review certain things, but we never had any processes put in place to help us get those tasks done and get them done effectively. When I started working in that center and I had a colleague working at another center and we would constantly communicate, I felt the need to put processes in place so that we could both be consistent in doing the same thing, so that if one therapist went to one center to perform a job and they had to go to another center to perform the other, that it would be very consistent and they would have the same expectations at one center as it would be at another. My management team loved that I put processes into place, and that's one of the reasons why they promoted me to being the quality supervisor. Is there anything else you would like us to know about you? Well, of course, I want you to know everything about me, and that's exactly why you should hire me for this position. I am a great worker. I am a great employee. A lot of management teams are very lucky to have me as a part of their team because I'm one of the hardest working people that will ever work for you, and also one of the most loyal people that will ever work for you. I'm very knowledgeable, I'm a very fast learner, and I'm an asset to any team that I'm on. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.